Welcome to the Overwhelming, but in a Good Way podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. This is our episode number 2. This is where experienced therapists come in and have debates and challenging questions. We have Ofir with us for this episode. Ofir, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, Rejoe. Good to be here again. The format's a little different. I can't smell you this time, but maybe that's a good thing. I'm less overwhelmed.
Well, probably it's a good thing. Yes. Ofir, today we are going to talk about how AI is influencing therapy and how a lot of teenagers are using AI as such as a substitute to going to a therapist. When I spoke with some of our therapists in Ofir Counselling, they did mention that in between sessions, their clients are using ChatGPT and Grok and other things just to emotionally manage themselves. And they come back in and they discuss about these things with the therapist. But the teenagers, they tend to connect more with the AI. So now the question is, as AI becomes a common space for teens to process emotions, how might it be reshaping their emotional development, relationship, and access to support?
A lot of questions in one. I think I'm going to answer the question of just the overall kind of pros and cons, implications of where things are moving to, because the biological, I think it's way, way, way too early to tell about how it's shifting the brain. In the same way that in the 60s when the TV came out, right? People thought this is how it's going to impact our brain in such a negative way. And then research came out and this is how video games are going to reshape our brain. And then the research around it came out. But I think as far as like implications, absolutely, it is becoming ubiquitous, whether it is a replacement for traditional therapy or as like a supplement, like an adjunct, right? People are kind of relying on it more and more. And I think it all depends on how you're using it. Right? If you're using it as a way to replace something like therapy or like some people are using it even to replace relationships, right? Which is a deeper connective type of need that we all as social animals have. I think it can become problematic. But as a supplement, I don't see a huge issue with it as long as you know what you're using it for. Right? When we first had a calculator, right, everyone was worried that it's going to make people not be able to add anymore and subtract and do arithmetic, right? And basic math problems because we could rely on this calculator to do all the work for us. In the end, maybe for some people, they never ended up learning how to use a calculator or never ended up learning how to do mathematics because they have the calculator. But that doesn't mean that has to be the case. There's other people as well that would still learn how to do the math and use the calculator as a means to be more productive as it relates to their mathematical pursuits. So I think this is very similar. That is a parallel to using AI. I think it's an amazing tool for specific purposes, but I don't see it anytime soon replacing real therapy or real relationships.
Just to add to that statement that you made, and I have a question regarding it. You mentioned that people are using AI as such to replace relationships, right? I have read about reports where people give lifelike humans. When I say lifelike, human-sized, dolls and everything, and people in certain communities, especially in Japan, this is where they are developing relationships with those robots and other, life dolls, as we call it. So is there a possibility that because in those relationships, conflicts might be very less? So is there a possibility that we are going to a space where we are moving away from human relationships? And if so, how concerning would that be for our human race, if I may ask?
Yeah. I don't think it's a concern. The reason I don't think that is because, like I said in my previous answer, it isn't a replacement. It isn't the real thing. Things like this have come and gone and have been utilized by a certain segment of the population for many years. I don't know if you know, like 25 years ago or so, a website called Second Life. It was a website where people could meet other people in sort of these virtual worlds, and people would have real relationships, quote unquote real relationships, and they would sort of cheat on their partners in this other world. And yes, the graphics in these worlds got better and better and better, and people would spend more and more time in these worlds. And a lot of people were worried about, well, if they're in this world, why do they need their original world? The thing that I see in these things, and the parallels again with whether it's AI as a replacement for a therapist or AI as a replacement for a real relationship, is that it's not designed for that. right? People will use it as an escape from their unhealthy relationships that they're in right now, right? And that's why they will cling to these things. No different, really, than if someone is coping with certain pain, and instead of confronting and dealing with their pain, they will go and drink, they will go and eat, they will go and gamble, they will go and use drugs, or what have you, or over depend on video games, or even something healthy like exercise. Anything that is being utilized as a way to depend on that device, not even depend, to lean on that device in order to not deal with the issue at hand, can become problematic. And I think this is just another outlet to not deal with whatever is happening internally for someone. And we'll have new things popping up all the time, and certain segment of the population that is not yet ready, or is incapable, or just did not have the resources to reach out and get real help or a real relationship, they can, there will be another tool and another leaning, like I said, over time, to allow them to not deal with their problems. And as we know, the drug epidemic is getting huge with fentanyl, and the issue is, to me, is not the drug, it's not the AI, it's not the food, it's not the drug, it's not the porn, it's not the video games. The issue at hand is the pain that people are experiencing, that they don't have access to, whether internally or externally, to be able to sort of deal and face and confront the real issue, which is the pain and the trauma that they are running from.
And so when you use the word escapism, another important question that we have been getting is, why is there that among the celebrators, the breakup and the separation and the divorce is so much? The rate is too high. Over there's what, we are seeing, at least probably that's because we are exposed to their lives more, but that could be a reason. But we hear somebody's getting into a relationship, and within 6 to 7 months, they're usually with someone else, and then it keeps changing. Are we saying that the actors and the actresses or people in the film field have more concerning attachment styles than the people outside? Is that what we are seeing at? And is that kind of concerning attachment, important for them to be good actors and actresses? Is that helping them take other roles? Is that something that, something is hurting so much that they're able to focus on the work and make it into a good, space?
Yeah. So yeah, certainly work like film can be a great escape to not have to deal with their interpersonal issues and their intrapersonal issues within them. You asked a lot of questions in there, so it's hard to know exactly, kind of thinking about what to answer. As far as like divorce and sort of relationships not working out, I don't know necessarily, because it's not like something that we tracked for a long time. What percentage of relationships work and are happy, and are people where it sort of quote unquote works, but they stay in unhappy relationships, and then what percentages end up kind of breaking up in the pre-marriage phase, and then the post, kind of while they're married. So my sense, though, is that that I don't know that the rates have necessarily changed. Sure, there are a lot more outlets to not work on the relationship in the same way that we just discussed, not dealing with your own issues. There's certainly, you can just go on the computer and swipe again and find another partner relatively quickly. So that's a lower barrier than maybe in the past. But I think, if I had to guess, probably 90% of relationships don't end up working. If 50% of relationships that lead to marriage don't end up working, it's got to be about 90% that end up not working. And yet, why is it that despite things not working, we're like a moth to a flame? That analogy that we'll just keep going into another relationship, into similar dynamics over and over and over, despite not being happy, despite not getting the results that we're looking for. What would you say the answer to that is? Why do we keep going back and trying again?
We are trying to get something that we missed in the childhood from another person, is what I would say. And sometimes
that's the reason why we enter unhealthy dynamics. But I'm more like at a fundamental level. Why do we keep striving to this time, right? Not get burnt this time, right? Like why do we do that?
It's the attachment styles that we have. If I'm an anxious attachment style person, I'll probably go with a person who's an avoidant or a disorganized, and then that cycle keeps happening. Why do we do it? We are hopeful. We are hopeful that next time is going to be different.
Why are we hopeful? Why are we hopeful?
That's a very good question. Why are we hopeful that the next time it's going to be different? Because we have a desire, I believe, deep within, to be loved.
That's right. To love and to be loved, right? As the Moulin Rouge saying, that's our purpose in life. One of the main purposes, the main driving factors of all life, right? At least mammals, if not more so, but at least mammals. This is a built-in mechanism that's at least 400 or 500 million years old. From the original mammals, right? Two sexes, we have a desire to mate, right? And what is mating if not to couple, to attach to another being, to love them, right? And this goes from, we say in EFT, from the cradle to the grave. From the moment we're born, we have not a desire, but an instinct to attach. As babies, if we do not have a caregiver there, we will die within a few days, right? We just can't, we can't survive, right? We'll die within a few minutes without the nourishment. But even if we got everything we needed physically, we will not survive without a caregiver. So back to your question of AI, a robot will kill a baby within 7 days, even if it meets all its needs, because it can't attach to something that does not have the gaze of a human being. Maybe one day they'll make a robot that will have a gaze that will be similar enough, and a baby can attach to it. But this is the sort of parent or caregiver child attachment. It's instinctual, because we can say why, because we're born premature and we're dependent on a caregiver to take care of us physically, and that's why instinctually we need to attach to an external sort of brain to get us to a place where we could be self-sufficient, right? That's one answer. But then why, as an adult, do we have that same desire to meet a romantic partner, right? We don't technically need it to survive physically, right? But almost everyone will still gravitate towards this sort of inherent need to be with someone, and to continually try until they have an inner sense of sort of happiness and connection that is built into us. That's my belief, is that we need to have this in order, not just to, from an evolutionary standpoint, propagate the species, right? But it's at a much deeper spiritual level that we need to bond to someone. You can look at all the research, read Love Sense, a great book by Sue Johnson, all the research on what categories of identities are the happiest. And by a yard, like by a mile, by a kilometer, because we're in Canada, married people that are happy live longer, have less stress, like now, by like a significant margin, compared to single people that are happy single, right? Worse off are people that are married and unhappy, interestingly enough. So it's not about the being married or being coupled. It's about being coupled and being happy in that relationship, which, for most people takes a lot of work to get there. But once you're there, or if you have the fortunate enough of upbringing that you're secure enough to pick someone that's also secure, and so then it might not take that same amount of work, and you reach there kind of in an easier way. But for most people, they don't have that. And so, it's almost like this mountain that people all like inherently want to climb until they get there, almost like a corporate or a position of power kind of, or success. But this is another pillar of sort of like Maslow's hierarchy, but in a different sense from kind of, basic needs to actualization. Part of that actualization is like a category of it is your quality of your relationships, and romantic relationship is one subset of that. That's sort of there at one of the most important things that we're on this earth to have and achieve.
Yeah, I agree with you. Ofir, one more question. We'll bring this podcast to the end, and then we'll have the second part of this podcast coming up soon. Is it possible for a person to feel completely loved, completely 100% loved by his or her partner? Or is that something that we still search for even after we are in a relationship?
Before I answer your question, is anything actually impossible?
Is anything actually possible?
Is it possible? Of course. Is it possible? How likely is it? I think there's a lot of factors that come into play. For most people, I would say it is possible, but it does take a lot of work. It takes doing your own inner work, and then once you're in a relationship, it takes doing that work together. You don't come into a relationship fully healed. That is not possible. You come into a relationship being able to own your own shit, as they say, your own baggage, your own upbringing, taking responsibility for it, and then also having capacity to know that your partner is also not perfect. And then if both of you are able to do that, you're able to make magic together. You're able to come together and achieve that happiness that I don't think is possible for an individual to have on this earth.
Okay. Thank you, Ofir, for joining us today. We will be meeting again. Just one more question. How is it coming with the TV show?
Well, the Get F by Ofir TV show is going well. We're
Yes.
towards the end of the first phase. The logos, the branding, the website, the legal is done, and we're looking at shooting once we have our cast, our couples, mid-May to early June is the hope that we'll start shooting, and by September it's going to air. So we're very, very excited for that.
Quite excited. I believe all our viewers are also waiting for that. Is going to be something that a lot of therapists can learn from, interns can learn from, people can identify the issues, and they can probably reach out for assistance and help. Thank you so much.
There's also a new show that just started on Netflix, March 4th or 5th, I think. It's called Blue Therapy. It's a little bit more on the reality TV side of things than the couples therapy show on Showtime. But it's what I like about just this is that I think more and more money and investment is being put behind shows like this that are actually, even though I'm not a fan of the style of this one in particular, the fact that it's being made speaks to that there's an audience for it, and that there's a hunger more than just entertainment, but that, right, like therapy, and like to be able to be inside the therapy room is something that's always been, I don't know, thing people stay away from that, like companies and therapists themselves. And I'm really appreciative that it is starting to come a little bit more into the mainstream, because before, a few years ago, the only way you could experience therapy is to be in a room with a therapist or to see it on TV. And when you see it, therapy on TV, I've never seen any depiction that even remotely resembles the real thing. So I like that now there's a willingness and a hunger, and people willing to take the risks, organizations, Netflix, Showtime, willing to take the risk of putting this kind of stuff out there with all the ethical and legal implications. So it's very exciting that we're not just going to be entering into a medium where nothing exists. There's already a couple of shows now that we'll be joining. So I'm really happy about that.
Very happy too, because it is going to break down that stigma also, because in a lot of societies there's a stigma of what going for couple therapy. So this one is going to break it, and it's going to give them an idea of how a therapy is supposed to be. It's not where a therapist asks you what to do something, and it's not solution focused. It's way more in depth, looking into attachments. Quite excited for all of us to watch it.
Yeah, so the first thing is called Get F by Ofir, and the sky's the limit. I think, if it takes off, we might have Get F by Rejoe or individual therapy version of that. Get something by Rejoe. We'll see next season. It can branch off to a lot of different things. I hope people will appreciate the amount of work we're putting into it, and the love that we're putting into it, and that someone can see themselves in the room, and even if they don't ever come in for therapy, would still benefit from it. That's my hope, to extend healing beyond the people that I directly work with. So I'm very excited for it.
Perfect. Thank you, Ofir. Wishing you a nice and happy day. I know you're going in for couple therapy. Wishing you the best for that. It's going to go as beautiful as always. Take care, Ofir. Thank you.
Hi, Ofir. Ofir, after years of sitting with people's pain, what have you learned about what actually helps people heal?
In the context of couples counseling,
Yes.
I think the most important thing is risk taking. It's the first thing that leads to the potential of corrective experiences. I always think bottom up, not top down. At the end of the day, we want them to have corrective new experiences that override their old ones.
For our audience who are hearing, can you explain the difference between bottom up and top down?
Yeah. So what I mean in this case, in bottom up specifically, well, in general, I mean inside out as opposed to outside in. Bottom up instead of top down. But in this particular case, what I'm referring to is, when I say risk taking, I'm referring to sharing in a way that is scary, but is healthy. And what that generally looks like is sharing in the most vulnerable way possible. We have words for it. We call it primary as opposed to secondary. So we share in a primary way. In other words, it's the truth. It's the truth of what it is you're going through. That's what we're trying to share.
When you say bottom up, would you be sitting with how the clients are feeling in their body?
Yeah, ultimately what we are is we're ambassadors for our body.
Yeah.
When our body is going through something, if we have trauma, our body learns, the trauma teaches you not to share what your body is trying to signal to you. So in different ways, we learn to mask that. So there's hundreds of, maybe thousands of different ways we mask, but we're sending indirect signals for our body. And so my job is to get them to access truly what's happening in their body one-on-one while their partner is in the room. And then once they feel safe, once it's emergent, once it's felt in the room, once it's visceral, once they are in that experience, I ask them, what is it? What would it be like to share that with your partner? That's where all the fears come up. That's where all the attachment wounds, that's where all the history, all the trauma comes up, and all the resistance and all the blocks and all the things telling them not to do what it is that I'm asking them to do come up. And that's where the magic happens.
When they take the risk, that's when the magic happens.
It can, yeah. It can, or it can fail miserably.
What happens if it fails miserably? What do you do at that time? How do you hold the space?
What would you do if a bullet came at you?
I'll get hit. I'll feel pain.
But how do we
How
do we prevent the bullet from hitting you?
to not stand in the way of fire?
One way, yeah, is to avoid the bullet. Another way is to catch it. So my job is to catch the bullet. So we have a term in EFT called catching the bullet.
Yes. Yes.
So as soon as we see a bullet coming, why would we let it hit the other person, right? The person doesn't want to be sending a bullet. The other person doesn't want to be receiving a bullet. They're working from old cues. They're working from old patterns, right? And when I see that, I interrupt it. I intervene. Yeah. So the least amount of damage is done. That might be 1 second into their share. That might even be before their share. If I see a bullet coming, my job is to catch it.
One of the things that sometimes when I speak with the counselors or with people who are not even counselors, one of the things that are coming up is that the divorce rates are higher at this point in time than it was, let's say, 50 years back. Not getting controversial, but there are concepts of the feminists or the roles of masculinity and femininity.
Don't be afraid to take a risk. Speaking the truth is not controversial. It's a risk.
It is a risk, yeah. So the masculinity and femininity being blurred, did all this contribute to the relationships failing? In America, I think the statistics is 50% of the people who are getting married are ending up in divorce. So did the roles that are getting blurred, how much of that contributed to the relationships failing?
That's really hard to say. There's a lot of reasons why the rate is 50%. It may be that it was always 50%. It may be that it was always 90%, right? The fact that we use this number, we're only counting marriages. We're not counting all relationships. Not all relationships end in marriages and then end up failing after a marriage. Many relationships, people break up before they get engaged, right? Before they end up getting married, or they're common law and they end up getting separated. And those wouldn't ever go into the stats. So in reality, it's probably closer to 90%. I don't see a relationship ending as a failure, though. Relationships are like a recipe, like a baking recipe. You've got different ingredients. Each partner is different ingredients. They've got their genetics. They've got their upbringing, right? They've got every single relationship they've ever been in. And then the other side has the same, right? Different genetics, different place and time, maybe different age. They come in and they go into the oven together. And whatever the recipe is, whatever the temperature is, let's say the environment at the time, will produce scientifically the result that you would expect from a baking recipe. It's an inevitability that the end result is the end result. In the separation or in therapy, we become aware of what the recipe is, right? The ingredients for each partner. And these blind spots become magnified and comes to the sunlight. And then we can do something about it. Until that happens, until you get an intervention or like a therapy or someone points it out or you become aware of it. And often that does come in the end of a relationship. What happens after you're broken up with? What do you experience?
There's pain, yeah.
What's a better teacher than pain to reflect on what happened? So
when you look at it from that perspective, yeah.
Do you regret any relationship you had before you had been with your wife?
Do I regret? I learned a lot.
Have you ever called anything you learned something from a failure?
No.
How
So
much,
it's been that way, it's not a failure.
how much did you pay for your education?
For those educations, almost nothing, just pain.
What about your formal education?
That's a lot of money. Yes.
What did you learn more from, your formal education or the free quote unquote education about yourself?
About yourself, yeah, the pain, the pain that I went through.
Yeah.
You're right.
Well, the price of admission is the pain.
Yes.
Still not a failure.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I really appreciate the way you have looked at divorces, not from a point of failure, but from a point of learning. I really appreciate it because a lot of people who have been through separations can feel like a failure. Society can make them feel that way.
Yeah.
And so the very fact that you turn that whole lens and not looking at it as a failure, but rather a learning experience, right? I really appreciate that. That probably can put a lot of people knees to emotionally.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite couples, I'll just kind of mention this, is someone that I saw 3 separate times,
Uh-huh.
3 separate partners. And it wasn't until the third one that she was ready to really do the work. But if it wasn't for the other two and our work together, I'm not sure if she would have been ready. So even though you can even say my therapy failed, albeit it was very early in my career at process, that she goes, now that I'm with this partner, I could actually do the work with my third partner. Yeah.
Does therapy fail, or does it make it more obvious if they cannot be with each other?
Same answer. EFT is meant to elucidate the truth, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That might mean sometimes that partners are not ready, or the truth that one person is not ready to be in this relationship comes to light.
Mhm.
A good analogy is COVID. A good percentage of couples, not even stories, like actually my couples, during COVID, a good percentage got closer together because of COVID when they came back and did to work, like to work with me. Because one of the main issues in the relationship, they were both so busy, they just didn't have enough quality time together. And COVID was a blessing for them to be able to spend more quality time together. It allowed everyone to slow down. That was what was missing. Another good percentage, COVID was a big stressor, and was everything in the relationship that was not working was magnified during this time, which is not a bad thing if you address it. But if it's not addressed, it becomes more data, more residue that gets swept under the carpet, and then one layer on top of another layer on top of another layer. The carpet's like very lumpy at a certain point, right? And now they come back for some support.
Yeah. Taking it back a few steps, just want to talk to you about the concept of masculinity. As a relationship therapist, what is the role of masculinity in a relationship? I mean, because there's a lot of backlash against masculinity, right? Calling masculinity toxic, but masculinity as such, as we know, is not toxic. There are toxic traits. It can be in femininity or in masculinity. There can be toxic traits. That's my view on that. But you can correct me or you can contradict it, and we'll have a discussion on that too. But however, what is the role of masculinity in a modern relationship?
I'm gonna channel Sue Johnson for this answer. She's the creator of EFT. She created one of the main tenets of EFT is that it's a non-pathologizing model, right? The word toxic has a connotation of being bad, right? Which is a type of pathology. So even that we start the question with pathologizing something already has my flags go up, right? Any trait in a particular environment is going to be functional or not functional, but it will always be understood if you go back far enough or if you understand the context, right?
As to why that is happening.
Yeah. Sue had a very, very popular story that she would tell around the word narcissism, because it's like a big word. It's very used. Narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder. And her story was I'll start with the conclusion. The conclusion is that we are all narcissistic in the wrong environment. So the story was she gets on a plane, and I might be butchering the story, but this is how I remember it. She gets on a plane. She's running late. She finally gets to her seat. She already has severe flying anxiety, even though she flies all the time. And I'll just pause. Sue Johnson was my mentor. She died in April 2024, a couple of years ago, probably around this time, around April 20th. And actually might be her anniversary today. I'm going to look it up after. But that aside, she gets to her seat. She's already hyperventilating herself and late, and takes her pill to calm down for flights. And I remember she said a large man comes and is moving through the seats and ends up sitting right beside her and pushes through and has to sit there. And he goes, I think I'm going to have a heart attack or a panic attack, one or the other. I think it was panic attack, actually. And Sue Johnson worked with 20 or so thousand couples, right? Created this beautiful model, one of the most empathic people in the world. What do you think she says to him? She says to him, oh, no, you are not having a panic attack on this plane, and goes into directive mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a very narcissistic, you could say, response. She's just being selfish right now, right? And so the purpose of that story is even the most non-narcissistic person can do a narcissistic thing in a particular
that environment.
Yeah. If our needs are not met, if we're sleep deprived, if we're hungry, if we're thirsty, someone wants something from us and we have no capacity to give it to them, we will be narcissistic, right?
Yeah.
So, to your question about masculinity, femininity, certain traits, toxic, not toxic, I know there's a big conversation in the world about it, maybe less so now, but it was very much in front and center up until quite recently. I don't think any trait is toxic in and of itself without understanding the context. I think some things, like any kind of coping, may be functional in a particular moment, maybe not functional for what that person wants or for a relationship, right? But at some point in time, I guarantee you it was functional for that person. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
It does. It does. What is it that the most people misunderstand about therapy before they start it? What do you think? I mean, especially with couples.
Yeah. I hope my TV show will help dispel some of the myths. That is one of my main aims.
Yeah.
But I think one of the most common things that people come to, also, I need to really specify, not all couples therapy is the same.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So my approach to couples therapy is emotionally focused therapy, which is very different than Gottman, which is very different than systems theory, which is very different than Satir, right? Which is very different than Gestalt. They're all very different. They have a lot of overlapping traits, but I'm just going to speak for EFT in particular, or actually for couples therapy, coming in, dispelling it. One of the biggest things that I see is that, maybe there's a few, is that, so for men, withdrawing men, one of the things that's specifically for them that comes up is it's going to be 2-on-1. It's going to be the therapist and my partner coming in to tell me I'm wrong, to tell me to gang up on me, right?
Yeah.
So that's what makes people quite reluctant to start the process. And that's where you hear people like having to drag in their partners to therapy, to couples therapy. The other thing is that we're going to be going into your childhood and we're going to be having to sift through all these painful memories and going to like old wounds that they don't want to go into, which is also a myth. A third is that I'm just going to be telling people what to do. And it's my role to say who's right and who's wrong. And this is how you're going to fix it. And that's another big, those are kind of 2-in-1. That I'm going to tell you how to fix it and that there is a right and a wrong, which, if you connect my last question about non-pathologizing, there is no right and wrong.
Yeah.
To bring it back to your bottom up or top down, this is another good way to explain it. On the top level, we can argue, you can call it the cognitive, you can call it the story, you can call it the content level. There is a right and wrong answer. There is an objective, this is clean and this is dirty. This is my preference and this is your preference. The world is round, the world is flat. We have answers, right? In the external world. When it comes to the bottom, which is the experience, there isn't a right and a wrong. There's this
how you experience
and this person's experience, and they're both right. They're in a particular moment in time, two people are experiencing very different things in relation to one moment in time.
Yeah. One event, the experiences are two different spaces. Yeah.
And that comes back to the recipe, the ingredients in the recipe. That's what causes the person to have that different experience.
How do you personally take care of your own mental health and emotional health while holding, space for others? Because you have been in this field for 20 plus years, if I'm not mistaken, right?
My practicum was in 2012.
2012.
So that was sort of when I started seeing clients, January 2012. So that's 14 years, and then registered 2013. So yeah, 13, 14 years.
13, 14 years now.
Wow, you're dating me. I feel old now.
Well, how do you personally take care of yourself?
Honestly, one of the things, and it's going to sound weird or maybe unhealthy, is actually doing couples work is very therapeutic for me. When I was not in a good place, I lowered my caseload thinking that this will help me a couple years
Hmm.
ago. And it actually was counterproductive because seeing couples is very therapeutic. It's actually part of my self care, believe it or not. It makes me feel competent, capable. I get really good feedback. I get rewarded. I get fulfilled seeing the growth, the change in people and couples specifically. So that's one thing, and anything can be taken to the extreme. Like I have a quite a light caseload, I think, relative to most counselors, given my role, and I see about 10 to 12 client hours a week,
Hmm.
which is not that much. Nothing close to what you see, which is probably almost 3 times as much as me.
You're packed with other works.
I mean, yeah, I couldn't see 30 hours like you if while still doing everything I'm doing
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now. Another thing is sports. I really enjoy sports. I play now 2 days of sports a week.
Uh-huh. What do you play?
Pickleball on Wednesdays.
Uh-huh.
Thursdays I'm in a multi-sport league. So this week we're doing hockey. A week ago was soccer. The week before that was basketball. The week before that was ultimate frisbee. So every week we do a different sport. I think we're doing dodgeball next week. Yeah.
What is the hard truth about healing that people don't want to hear but need to?
I think there's only one way to solve a problem, right? Sometimes we say there's many ways to skin a cat, right?
Mm-hmm.
That expression.
Yeah.
The only way to overcome a problem is not going over it, is going through it. You can't overcome. You have to confront. You have to go into it.
The way we say the only way over pain is through the pain.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah. And that doesn't mean you have to go through it fast,
yeah.
or there's only one way to go through that pain,
Mm-hmm.
but you can only heal by feeling it,
Mm-hmm.
having like fully connecting to it, and then in the couple's context, having a new result when you expose that to your partner. A new result, meaning not what you had experienced before in your
Where the pattern is breaking and a new space is being formed. Yeah. Yeah.
like when I said taking a risk earlier, the reason people are afraid to take risks is because they took a risk at one point in their life and it didn't go well.
It backfired.
And the body, the nervous system inherently has to come up with some kind of block, right? Yeah, and then there's a belief system around that block that it's obscured. It's not because I'm scared. That's the belief system. It's because either it's not even a viable option, like it's not even in the radar as a possible option, or if you really ask someone, it's weak or pathetic or right,
Mm-hmm.
it's not strong,
Mm.
be vulnerable, even though it's a hard thing to do. Right? What's the definition of courage?
Definition of courage: doing something even though it is a challenge.
Yeah,
That's my definition. But yeah.
exactly. That's perfect. So if being vulnerable is a challenge,
Yeah.
that takes courage. How could doing something that takes courage be weak? But in people's heads, if they've been told, boys don't cry, I'll give you something to cry about,
Mm.
or even not explicitly, consciously, just ignored for any kind of vulnerability, like neglected
Mhm.
space for it. No time. They're busy. What is a child supposed to think around their feelings? The things that are most important to them, right? Their body is telling you something,
Mm-hmm.
ignored for it. What kind of belief system can you form around that if no one's giving you space to share? It's not safe to share, but they don't see it as it's my parent or partner. They have to go, there's something wrong with me, with my feeling, with experiencing this. And then I have to find a way to deal with it on my own, or other drugs or other means to cope
Yeah.
with when it comes up again. But with that says I can't go to someone else.
Mhm. The statement that you mentioned a few minutes back, I'm just paraphrasing it, about the vulnerability when you're talking about, it is one of the most difficult things to do, and yet, you know, and yet it can produce a lot of positive results. It's not easy. It's not easy to be vulnerable, especially when you probably have been vulnerable at one point in time, and it probably backfired, be it in your childhood or be it with your partner or be it in a previous relationship. right? And that's why people, to guard them, to safeguard them, they put up a wall or they bring up the defenses.
That's right. It's no different than any other fear or phobia. If
Yeah.
you fell off a swing as a child, and you almost died, cracked your head open, would you get on a swing again later in life?
Probably not.
Or if you almost drowned as a kid, getting back in the pool, if you didn't overcome that at some point in time,
Yeah.
you survived without getting back in a pool, right? And your brain's going to say the only reason I survived is because I stayed away.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like an old appendage. It's like a belly button or male nipples. Like, these are appendages, not evolutionary appendages, but emotional appendages.
Yeah. After everything you have seen in your work, what gives you hope about people?
I've never lost hope about people. I see change every day. So I've never, regardless of what's going on the outside, in the microcosm of my work, I see change happening every day.
I was just to add to that, yesterday I was having a conversation with somebody, and I was telling them humans always surprise me as a therapist. Humans have always surprised me. We feel, okay, this change is not going to happen. Then, like, there's a change, a beautiful change that comes in. Absolutely, absolutely.
Well,
I
Maslow said it best, I think. Like, we all have this inner healer that wants to actualize.
That's true.
And it could be, it can have cobwebs around that inner healer and all these different ways of coping, like I discussed. But that inner healer is always there, trying to come to the surface, even in times where we're in survival mode and barely just holding on.
Mhm.
That inner healer is still there. It just might be quieter, but it's still there.
Still there. Yeah, yeah. If you could teach one emotional skill to everyone in the world, I think you know the answer to it. But if you could teach, what would it be and why? I think I know the answer you're going to say, but you know what?
Well, because you said that, I'll come up with something different.
Do you want me to Do you want me to tell you what I'm going to say?
Because you said you think you know what it is, I'll come up with something a little different.
Okay.
The most important emotional skill
Yeah.
to have, I think it's if we're talking again in relationships in particular, whether it be with romantic relationships or with your kids, I think it's doing inner work. And by that I mean whatever inner work, whatever blocks you have, it will show up in all your relationships. So any work you can do that allows you to heal the older wounds, the blocks you have, that closes you up from connecting with other people, that disconnects you from other people, that creates rifts between you and other people. These are all blocks, right? It's really easy because our senses, they all point outwards, right? Our ears go out, our eyes go out, our nose goes out, our mouth goes out, our touch goes out. So our attention's always out by default. So we jump to that person did that thing to me, they're the problem, right? But we're pointing our attention to the thing we have no control over. So inner work means pointing the attention to what is it about me that I can take from the situation, from this pain, where I can have some shifts in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also that baby steps lead. How do people learn to walk? All babies start with baby steps. That might mean leaning over and, right, like crawling. All baby steps count towards being able to eventually stand up and walk and run and jump and climb and soar.
Yeah. Good to talk with you today, Ofir. We should be connecting again for the next episode. This is our second episode. Looking forward to talking with you more about therapy, human relationships, ever-changing human relationships. And we'll talk more about in the next podcast. We'll talk more about polyamorous relationship and many other aspects. We'll be bringing it up. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.